Hi and welcome to AskSCW, answering your questions in the wrestling community. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe, please like and share, and leave a comment on your favourite topic in the comments below. You can get involved as well on the next AskSCW. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Leave the hashtag AskSCW and you can get yourselves involved. Plenty of topics to be talking about today. We've got WWE, we've got of course The Miz versus Bobby Lashley, who is going to be WWE Champion going into WrestleMania. Going to be talking WWE FastLane. We've got Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair for WrestleMania. And of course AEW Revolution is just 7 nights away. So lots of topics to cover. Let's get straight in with the first question this week. Giving credit to two people for the first question this week. Of course we've got Austin Whitley and Ovi Manise. Austin saying, Bobby Lashley wins next week. Would you book Lashley McIntyre or Lashley McIntyre Lesnar for WrestleMania 37? And Ovi Manise also wants to know Bobby Lashley's opponent. Would it be Drew McIntyre or a surprise superstar? Well, obviously, I think with the surprise superstar, definitely, yeah, Brock Lesnar would be a massive surprise. And if I'm being honest, if we're going to have a WrestleMania match, that triple threat screams amazing to me. It definitely would be a dream match environment. Certainly feels a WrestleMania worthy. I think more than likely it would be Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley. But that's if Bobby Lashley wins the WWE Championship this coming week on Raw. So to give my prediction for that match, The Miz versus Lashley, who wins is the big topic. I think Lashley does win the match. And obviously, let's be fair, if there's no outside interference, there's no other result. Lashley wins the WWE Championship. But for me, I have a feeling that Lashley is going to get to the point where he's going to be winning. I think he's going to go for the spear. I think Drew McIntyre comes into the Thunderdome, and I think he actually hits a Claymore on Lashley, causing a DQ finish. This will either lead then to Miz versus Lashley at Fastlane or a triple threat. Either way, I think Bobby Lashley will be WWE Champion, but I don't think it's going to be tomorrow night on Raw. I think more than likely it will be held off until the Fastlane pay-per-view. But if it was my pick of the matches that were given there, Austin, I certainly would go with that triple threat match. I think that certainly screams like WrestleMania worthy. But if I had to predict which match I think will happen, as I say, if I think Bobby Lashley wins the WWE Championship at Fastlane, I think that leaves the path then for him and Drew at WrestleMania. Would I like to see Lashley versus Lesnar? Now that's certainly something I definitely would like to see. I'm just not sure that Lesnar comes back at this stage. And if he was to come back, how would Lesnar just fit back into normal WWE without Paul Heyman? Would Paul Heyman be on both shows? I kind of feel that if Brock comes back, it almost has to be addressed with him and Roman Reigns first before we could get that match. So I think more than likely as a destination, we would get Lashley versus Drew at WrestleMania, and Drew then can win the championship in front of fans. Next questions come from Lorenzo Carrillo, asking, if Bobby Lashley wins the WWE title, would you see him as a long or short-term champion? And will WWE let Liv Morgan shine as a single star? Two good questions there for us. Personally, as I said in the last question, I think Drew wins the belt back in front of fans, so I do expect it to be a short reign. I don't expect it to be a long-term that Lashley would be WWE champion, certainly on his first run, but I do feel right now with the role that Lashley is on in WWE, I would like to see him have a lengthy run as champion. I think Drew perhaps should lose at WrestleMania if he was to face Lashley and then get the win at SummerSlam. Maybe Drew can win a championship at WrestleMania the following year. I just feel it's Lashley's time, and now he's actually been put in the WWE Championship picture. I think he should win it, and I think he should have a run with the belt, not just have it for a few short weeks. But if I was to predict WWE and feel that I have an idea of what WWE will do, like I say, I think Drew wins the belt back at WrestleMania. So unfortunately, I think that the first reign for Lashley would be a short one. Maybe, hopefully, Lashley will get a longer reign later on in the year. As for Liv Morgan, well, WWE kind of gave her that go as a single star when they broke up the Right Squad, and I kind of felt like they didn't really know what to do with her. So maybe somewhere further down the line, if they get an actual vision and plan of how to push her going forward as a top single star, I think then they would perhaps go back down to that route, because I do think they do see a lot of potential in her, and they should. She's a very good single star, but at the moment, I think she's in a good place with the Right Squad. The only thing I would say is that at the moment, the Right Squad seem to be putting over the newest teams on SmackDown, and they seem to be pushing themselves further and further away from the Tag Team Championships. I would like to see them get more wins, but for right now, I'm a fan of them as the Right Squad. I think together, Ruby and Liv, they work well as a duo, but perhaps when there's a bit more experience in there, and perhaps, like I say, a vision and a plan, that's when Liv Morgan can finally get a real push and perhaps go for a championship in WWE. One more question from Lorenzo Correa. Do you think the SmackDown Women's division is stale aside of Sasha and Bianca, and who would benefit from going to SmackDown? Really interesting question, this one. I wouldn't really say that the SmackDown division is stale. I'm quite a fan of quite a few of the talents. Bayley, Carmella, we mentioned the Right Squad in the last question. We've got Natalia on there. Yeah, we have Tamina as well. She's kind of in her part of the year where she gets her push. It'll probably derail somewhere after WrestleMania. She'll go missing to the Rumble next year. But looking at it, I think SmackDown as well, they have Billy Kay there. They do have some stars on there, and it's only a 2-hour show, so they don't have as much time as Raw does to really push more women on that show. But what I would say is at the moment, the one that would perhaps seem most could do with a change from going from SmackDown to Raw to allow someone from Raw to come to SmackDown, I think would be Bayley. I think Bayley would benefit from a change of scenery. She was champion so long on SmackDown that I can't really see where at the moment she'd fit in on a meaningful program. So after WrestleMania, this is how I would book it. I would move Charlotte Flair over to SmackDown to take her away from Asuka. I think Charlotte could benefit going back to the blue brand, and in a trade you can put Bayley on Raw. So that way then Charlotte can come to SmackDown. It would freshen things up because you've got the likes of, we've not had Charlotte versus Sasha Banks for years now. I know they fought a lot back in 2016, but I mean, that's 5 years ago. We can revisit that now, and Sasha's looks to be going towards a heel turn at the moment as well. Charlotte seems to be babyface. That dynamic feels kind of fresh for that rivalry as well. I think it was the opposite when they had their million matches back 5 years ago. And also, I mean, Charlotte wants to work with Bianca Belair at some point, so perhaps maybe she would get that opportunity. Maybe, like I say, a loser leaves Raw match could be a WrestleMania match for Charlotte and Asuka, or perhaps even Rhea Ripley. We'll have to wait and see how plans will go as when they come about. But for me, SmackDown, it's not so stale. I think they've got room to push stars on there. But if you are going to move one over, I think Charlotte would be the one to move over, because even though Charlotte has multiple fresh opponents she could face on Raw, weirdly enough, she seems to always go against Asuka. I don't know what it is. Next question comes from Messiah Turpin, asking, should Brock Lesnar make a return at Miz and Lashley's title match and cause Lesnar versus Miz at FastLane? What an interesting twist that would be. I'd like the sound of that in a weird way, but because, I mean, of course, if you were going to build a match towards Lashley and Lesnar, this would be a way that you could go about it. Poor Miz, every scenario I'm having him losing the WWE Championship very, very quickly, but I personally don't think Brock Lesnar will come back at this stage, as I said earlier in the video, but would it be something I would like to see? Yeah, I think it would be interesting. If Lesnar was to come involved, though, I would actually turn around and say that either Lashley would get a rematch, or it would end up being a triple threat match, as I suggested what could happen if Drew was to intervene on Raw. But certainly it's an interesting idea, and definitely wouldn't be against it. Next question is from Bone Crusher. Thoughts on Brock Lesnar? He's larger than life, he's legit, he's a powerhouse, he's the beast incarnate. He is Brock Lesnar, a once-in-a-generational talent. Brock Lesnar, in my opinion, is one of the best, and still one of the best. Even though he's a part-timer, he comes in, he's an attraction, and like I say, he's legit. Every time he comes in, he's not missed a step, he's not missed a beat. Yes, he does a lot of suplexes. We go to Suplex City every time. Sometimes you could even argue some matches can be a bit repetitive. But if you go back to 2002, you look at the talent that came in, the next big thing, Brock Lesnar, very quickly showed what a star he is in the ring and what he could do, and he can go. Very quickly became king of the ring, like I say, WWE champion at SummerSlam 2002. And when returning, I mean, look, he's put on some amazing matches still. He's had matches with the likes of AJ Styles and with Daniel Bryan, even that Royal Rumble match he had with Finn Balor, of course. And let's not actually look back when Drew McIntyre was made into a star during the Royal Rumble in 2020. That was at the expense of Brock Lesnar. Lesnar can make a star. He really has got that talent in his arsenal. And I want to see in 2021, that's what I want to see from Lesnar going forward now. Because, like I say, he is legit. He is the beast. But he can make new beasts and new stars. I mean, obviously, Lashley, yes, he's in his mid-40s, but that's a match we still want to see, and Lashley would be the right guy to go over, in my opinion. Keith Lee would be another one that would be epic to see. I think fans potentially have soured on Lesnar a little bit due to that part-time status, that part-time attraction, probably because he comes in and he usually defeats your favourite wrestler. That's usually what happens with Brock Lesnar. But at the same time, for me, I also look at that perhaps maybe when those times he's held the championship hostage, he doesn't need the championship in 2021. So I think if he was to come back, I think that people would be more in favour of it if you book him in the right matches, in the right environment. Like I say, he is an attraction. He should be treated like it. He is once in a generation. There are not many like Brock Lesnar, especially in today's market in wrestling. And he feels like a legit superstar, in my opinion. Should be in a lot of people's top 10s. Whether he is or not, you have to let me know in the comments below. But definitely, Brock Lesnar, like I say, he's an amazing talent. And yeah, I think he's underappreciated. I really, really do. Next question comes from DWE. Am I the only one that thinks The Miz should go into Mania as champ? I feel like Money in the Bank and The Miz is a big moment at the top and would be wasted if you lost it on Raw or on FastLane. You're definitely not the only one. Unfortunately, I'm just not one of them. Now, my reasoning for it is that I look at The Miz and I think if he'd won the WWE Championship at a different time of the year, I would say, let's go all in and let's see what we can do with The Miz. Unfortunately, The Miz has won this on the road to WrestleMania when there's not many weeks left. And if you look at The Miz over the last 12 months or so, the booking of The Miz hasn't exactly been strong. He took advantage of Otis to win the Money in the Bank. And, I mean, he's obviously won by cashing in the championship, as you do in a Money in the Bank environment, by getting an advantage. But he's not legitimately built himself up to get in that position where you feel like he is a worthy WWE champion. It's fun to see him in the role. He's a good wrestler. Hell, he's a good promo. But I just don't think at this point that Miz should be main eventing WrestleMania, especially when you look at the caliber of superstars that is around him. Lashley is someone that I think a lot of people have wanted to see as WWE champion for many, many years. I mean, for me, I'm going back to 2007 when I say I wanted to see Lashley become WWE champion. The fact that he lost to John Cena in the match, which I believe was at the Great American Bash, something like that. I was disappointed that he lost that match when it felt like, you know, the rocket was on him at that point. He then got injured and he left the company. So we never got the opportunity to see what Lashley could do when he had the momentum at that point. Since coming back in 2018, he looks like a champion. He feels like a champion. He just hasn't been booked like one until the last 8 or 9 months. And this is where he differentiates to The Miz to me. If you go back to Backlash last year, yes, Lashley lost that championship match. But since then, Lashley has only lost twice and has actually only been pinned once. And to be fair to him, when he got pinned, it was a fluke against Riddle, and he absolutely destroyed Riddle the next couple of weeks also. The fact he lost the championship as well at Fastlane, he wasn't involved in the decision. Lashley right now has a fire and a passion. It feels like a lot of people are behind it. So I think myself, and I think a number of people on the other side, would prefer to see Lashley go in as WWE champion. I think that championship for me would need to change hands. Should The Miz get a proper go at some point down the line? Definitely, but I want to see him built towards that. And of course, now he's found himself in that position. He's been in the company a long time. He has had great moments. But for me, it's what have you done for me lately? I think he's just come in, he's snuck in, and like the Cowardly Heel, he stole the championship. And power to him for that. But unfortunately, when a lot of those heels do that with Money in the Bank, sometimes they don't always keep the belt that long. And for me, I look at it and say that The Miz, it's the right place, but it's the wrong time. I think Lashley will take the belt, unfortunately, from your point of view, and I do feel that Lashley will go on to WrestleMania as WWE Champion. Getting the Big Fight Feel with our next question now. Joseph Conlin from the Big Fight Feel on YouTube. Go and subscribe to him right now. Thoughts on this new gimmick with Apollo Crews on SmackDown, and will it lead him to defeating Big E for the Intercontinental Championship? Really fun question, this one, and my favourite segment of SmackDown, head and shoulders above everything else on SmackDown this week, was the Apollo Crews segments. I really enjoyed them. I love the fact that now we've got this character development, and this new character, I think, can really take Apollo to this next level, because he's got a brand new attitude, new ring gear. It just suits him perfectly. I'm loving the fact we're going with this Nigerian heritage. I'm loving that we've got the green and white as well on, of course, the new ring attire as well as the scarf as well. The fact that those colours representing money and power. I'm loving this aggression as well that we've got. He went to grab the steel steps once again to go for Shinsuke Nakamura at the start of their match on SmackDown. I'm loving as well the fact that even the angle slam, we've got a brand new finishing move. The Olympic slam seems to be now in Apollo Crews' arsenal. All of these little things put together, I really can see something that's been missing from Apollo Crews for a long time. So many people have said that Apollo Crews is a guy that should be towards the top of the card. And politely, I just hadn't seen it. I said that, yeah, he's great in ring. He puts on a fun match. He's great to watch in ring. But I just didn't see him getting to that next level. Now I've seen this. I now see it. I can see the next level for Apollo Crews. I really think that the future is so bright for him. And I do think now, seeing this week, 50-50 booking from WWE was done so perfectly for once, which initially caused that heel turn last week to then this week actually getting the win. Of course, then we've got this new character, we've got this new style from Apollo, and just those little tweaks, it just was perfectly done, because all the momentum Shinsuke had been building at the start of the year, he hasn't lost any of that credibility, losing to Apollo, who's gained so much in just 2 weeks on SmackDown. And saying there now, can he win the Intercontinental Championship? Well, of course, he took Big E out last week, who was taken out on a stretcher, put in an ambulance, written off TV for the time being. I really want to see this Intercontinental Championship match all of a sudden. We've seen it a couple of times in ring on SmackDown, but now the fact that the stakes have been raised, the story has happened, we've seen development in both characters, both sides. I'm really excited to see it. I want to see it. And at this point, I actually would be happy to see Apollo become your next Intercontinental Champion. I think it'd be amazing if it was to go down. I really think Apollo Crews is going places. I could see him going quite high up the SmackDown roster if this is just a sign of what things are to come. Next question comes from Ladarius Brown. Who will be facing Asuka at WrestleMania now that Bianca Belair made it official to face Sasha Banks? Really interesting question, this one, because, yeah, what happens to Asuka? Who is ready for Asuka is the big question. Well, it feels most likely, judging on what's been going with the story turns on Raw, Charlotte Flair is the likely destination. And can you imagine Charlotte Flair not being in the championship match at WrestleMania? Me neither. It seems to be that Charlotte's going to continue as the babyface, and Asuka is losing patience with Charlotte. I mean, Charlotte's been focused on other things going on with her father and with Lacey Evans, of course, in the pregnancy angle, that it's kind of cost her and Asuka the tag team championships. It's cost them a few tag team matches as well. Asuka is losing patience, and it feels that that story is brewing. One thing that's also interesting, though, is that Rhea Ripley is coming to Raw very, very soon. We saw the video package on Raw last week, and God, I'm so happy to see Rhea Ripley is coming to Raw. It wouldn't have mattered if it was Raw or SmackDown, to be brutally honest, but just to see her and to see the potential that Rhea Ripley has, I really see big things in her future. I think Rhea Ripley could be added into a triple threat environment as well. She would want revenge on Charlotte. She would want to win the Raw Women's Championship. All of a sudden, the Raw Women's division could be put back on a pedestal again after it's been ignored for a few weeks or months, really. It's been focused on tag team division and the women's tag team championships and not the Raw Women's Championship. I really could see that happening now on the road to WrestleMania. We could get back to where it should be. But I think it's going to be Charlotte Flair for definite. The triple threat, I wouldn't rule it out, but that's definitely what I think could be the direction for Asuka heading into WrestleMania this year. JFS with our next questions now. What are your thoughts on Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair fighting at WrestleMania? And think Asuka will defend her title at WrestleMania, or do you think Vince will take it from her for Charlotte? And question 2, what matches from AEW's upcoming show do you think has been built better than the rest? So really good questions there. And just to finish off then with Asuka, I think she'll keep the belt till WrestleMania. There is a chance, I suppose, that she could lose it at FastLane to Charlotte. We're building up. We've got FastLane coming up. Maybe it's something not to rule out. Maybe it's Charlotte wins the championship. Maybe it's Charlotte versus Rhea at WrestleMania. How big of a shock would that be? Asuka's held the belt for so long throughout the year. You would feel that she's been robbed a little bit. But at the same time, if Charlotte was to win the belt now at Fastlane, I still think Asuka would be involved at WrestleMania. Now, if that was to go down and be the case, as I said previously on this channel, I then want Asuka to feel that she has a redemption story, that she's not going to be stepped over on another WrestleMania journey that she has been in the past. She's not going to be left on the sidelines to be forced to watch from the sidelines or have to take part in a battle royale. Instead, Asuka, she's going to be a part of that championship match, and maybe that's the creative direction that Asuka needs right now, because arguably I would say the championship run this time, it's been lackluster, and that's not due down to Asuka by any stretch of the imagination. It's down to the Raw creative. Unfortunately, they've just not booked the title reign as well as they could have done. Certainly not as what they had done the first time that Asuka had the belt when she'd won Money in the Bank last year. Looking then at Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair, for me personally, looking at this, this is the match we want to see at WrestleMania. Let's be honest here, I'm down for this. I think this was the right choice. It's a match I really want to see. The only problem I have with this currently is our good friend Reginald. Reginald, for me, seems to be implanted in every female storyline that's going on SmackDown with regards to whether it's Sasha, Bianca, Carmella. For me, it's just not working for having his dynamic in there at all. There is an argument, Sasha, it looks like she's turning heel. Maybe her and Reginald are going to team up at some point. Maybe Reginald is going to be, instead of being with Carmella, it's going to be with Sasha Banks. It certainly would be a likely possibility that could happen somewhere down the line. For me, I would say that with Sasha and Bianca, the thing that I want to see with this, I want to see both of them as top baby faces, because Sasha, not long been a babyface. I don't need to see her go back to being a heel. I wanted to see a face Sasha Banks. I like that as the champion, and I like the fact that, you know, both of them, the two top babyfaces, the two top superstars on SmackDown in the dream match at WrestleMania, may the better female win, and it would be the perfect main event, you know, for one of those nights on WrestleMania. The likelihood is, though, it's going to be the face and heel dynamic, which for me, it wasn't necessarily needed. I would say that with the booking so far, it's been a bit messy, but for the match itself, I definitely am looking forward to it. I do think these are two of the best female wrestlers in WWE today. I think it's a dream match. I think it's WrestleMania caliber, and I really, really think that it's going to be a show stealer come whichever WrestleMania night it's on over the whole of WrestleMania as well. I really think there's going to be good things done for it. As for AEW Revolution, let's talk some AEW, shall we? And which match has been built the best of all of them? Oh, looking through the card there, I think I have to go with the main event. I do think that there's history going with Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley. I do know that Moxley has not been on TV as much going into Revolution, but the whole twists and turns of Kenny Omega going to the cleaner, the fact the way his character's been in so many funny skits these last few weeks, the fact that Jon Moxley as well has been building up here and is willing to lose it all to win that championship back, the fact that these two have had to take it up a level and to go into this exploding barbed wire death match, for me, this is the one that really stands out as a match that I'm most looking forward to. You could argue everything going on with the Inner Circle as well, that with them and the Young Bucks could be quite interesting as a storyline, but for me, I'm going to take it on, and I do think the main event is the main event for a reason, and it's definitely where my most investment is currently on this card. There is excitement as well with the Casino Tag Team Battle Royale as well. The fact we've got the ladder match, we've got the mystery person that will be hopefully debuting on this show, which we'll touch on in a couple of seconds. There's lots of things to look forward to on this show, but for me, I mean, the other longest feud is probably the tag team match with Miro and Kip Sabian against, of course, Chucky T and Orange Cassidy. But for me, my investment and my best book match for it so far for me has to be the main event. Bonafide Heat of our next question now. And just to say very quickly, SCW interviews this week was with Bonafide Heat. Fantastic interview. I recommend highly go and check it out. And check out Bonafide Heat on YouTube as well. Amazing content, great videos. Make sure to go and check out Bonafide Heat. And he asks, what are your overall thoughts on All Elite Wrestling? It's a loaded question, this one. It's a great question as well. AEW, for me, they're still in their young years as a company, and they're still looking to grow. But for me, they're doing a lot of things right. They still have things they need to learn, but they're doing a lot of good things right. As a company, let's take it just back a little bit, and from their birthing stages, you look at their championship runs up to now. Chris Jericho, intelligent to have him as your first champion. The name value of Chris Jericho was going to bring the most outsiders to come in and view your product. Chris Jericho had a nice lengthy reign as champion. Then he moved over to Jon Moxley, who arguably had the right momentum at the time to win that championship, still had the name value, arguably as well, yes, another ex-WWE guy, but it was always building that momentum to get as many eyes on your product. And they built it to the right point where now Kenny Omega is your champion, an AEW person. Yes, arguably, yes, New Japan guy, but still, this is someone that's majorly involved with AEW, someone that's not an ex-WWE guy, and now you can start building for those AEW guys to come in and, build them towards the top of the card and be your future champions going forward. It's all about building those new stars, but not forgetting the superstars that can get you in that strong position before. And AEW is very clever at doing this. I think the timing with storylines is very good as well. I love the fact that how they can book long-term angles. I love as well that they have really brought excitement back into wrestling with working with other companies. What works really beneficial from this is that anything can happen at any time. You need to almost watch every single show of all these companies because AEW stars can turn up on Impact. We've seen as well with New Japan as well that possibly could be something down the future. The fact as well that those are coming to AEW. It feels like we've got the forbidden door is open. And for me, it's one of the most exciting things about wrestling right now. And let's not forget the NWA women's division has been highly involved as well with AEW as well, with the likes of Thunder Rosa, also as well with Serena Deeb, who I believe is actually an AEW talent, but is also holding the NWA Women's Championship at present. But of course, that also has its drawbacks because with the amount of people coming in from different other companies and outsiders as well coming in, that will take away time from your younger talent, perhaps some of your mid to lower card talent. They won't perhaps get as much TV time on Dynamite because it'll be at the expense of other people bringing in that revolving door. But at the moment, it's trying to build a stock for AEW. That's what I'm seeing with them right now. They're trying to get themselves as far up as they possibly can, and it's step by step getting them to that next level, and that's what AEW looks to do. We've seen the likes of people like Sting coming in, of course, a great legend, which people will remember from old days. Sting returning on TNT after 20 years is a massive deal. The fact that Big Show, Paul White, is now signed from the company. The fact we thought was a WWE lifer, someone we thought would be in the Hall of Fame. The fact he's now there with AEW, and yes, mainly on commentary, but will be in the ring also. It's great for spectacle. It's great for building new stars. It's great experience to pass on to that younger generation, that younger talent, for them to push forward and, you know, take that knowledge and build themselves up to the stars of tomorrow. So there's lots of great things that are coming from AEW. They have got things they've got to learn. They've got things they need to improve on. The women's division for me is one of them. They have a lot of women's wrestling, but of course, if you look at it, a lot of it's put on YouTube. I mean, this women's championship tournament thing we've got going on, not even all of the American bracket was put on Dynamite. Some of it's gone on Bleacher Report, some of it's gone on YouTube. I want to see more women's wrestling on Dynamite, and the fact we've now got kind of 3 shows now of AEW each and every week, I think we need to find a way of putting more women's wrestling where we can see more of it. And I want to see at least 2 matches on Dynamite every single week, because for me, I think that's a way to really help establish and build that division. A lot of people say it's one of the weaker points. For me, they have talent. It's just about actually using the creative and build that talent and giving them meaningful storylines. Last thing let's talk about celebrities. Yeah, they bring more eyes to the product. It's a clever thing to do. Shaq coming in will bring outsider eyes in. Snoop Dogg, another one. It's very clever the way that AEW is booking a lot of things. But of course, yeah, will the match be great this Wednesday coming up with Shaq and Jade Cargill against Cody and Red Velvet? Time will tell. It will remain to be seen. Will we eventually get Shaq versus Paul White, aka The Big Show? I think it will happen. I'm going to predict it will be at Double or Nothing. These spectacle things will help draw fans in, and I do think over the next coming, you know, baby step after baby step of things they're doing that's right, AEW will eventually become really appetizing to a lot of, you know, television producers from, you know, internationally, not just TNT where you've got in the States, but maybe some on a bigger platform here in the UK. Currently, I think it's ITV, where, you know, it's not the main ITV a lot of the time, or when you do get it, you get kind of like a late night brief highlights package. Maybe someone like Sky Sports will like to try and take over. Someone that had WWE for 30 years, because they won't have to spend so much money to get that product on TV, but it will go into a big globalized audience, and it will be something that will be a lot more popular and pushed at people all the time. So it will be interesting how it's going to go down for AEW. But for me, overall, I'm really enjoying what they're doing. They do a lot of great things. But for myself personally as well, this AEW versus WWE attitude, for me, I'm not such a big fan of it. I love the fact AEW is there as competition. It's great for wrestlers. It's great for fans. It's an alternative. You're not stuck with one. But is one better than the other? There's good and bad in all. I enjoy both. I find things that I really take from both shows. And looking at AEW, they do offer an alternative. I'm looking forward to following them on their journey, and it's going to take them a while to get to even close to WWE's level, but it's certainly going to be a fun ride, and I look forward to being someone sitting on my sofa, watching along each and every week, and seeing them get to those milestones each and every time they get there. Next question comes from AK The Elite. Who is going to be the mystery entrant in the ladder match? It's a really good question, this one, and of course, AEW, Tony Khan has said that there will be some old faces coming in, and there'll be some new faces coming into the company over the next period, so perhaps we've got a new entrant, a new superstar in AEW that will be debuting here at Revolution. I expect that's what the mystery opponent's going to be. It's for the number 1 contendership for the TNT Championship, so I don't expect it to be, if you want, your top world championship sort of level superstar. So looking at what's currently free on the market, and I think that could add something to AEW, I'm going for Ethan Page. I really think All Ego coming in would be making a lot of sense for AEW right now. He's great on the mic. He's great in ring. We can't get in the North right now. Josh Alexander still is under contract to Impact Wrestling, and certainly I believe that is going to be to the end of this year. So right now, I mean, for a TNT Championship run, or certainly as a contender in that division, I think Ethan Page would benefit. And I do think that perhaps when it comes to tag team wrestling, looking at him and Josh, I think that they would be quite excited if they do come back working together to work in AEW as the North and go against the likes of Young Bucks, you know, FTR, and all those other great tag teams they've got. So I expect Ethan Page to be the one to join All Elite Wrestling. I think he'll be a part of this ladder match, and I think it'll be pretty awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing it, because Ethan Page is one of my favourites, and to see him unattached with not any company right now, it makes me feel like that this will be the spot that he'll come in. Next question has come from Scott Robinson. Who are the other 2 men who will put in the ladder match at Revolution, and what matches would you have at WWE FastLane? Well, I mentioned Ethan Page as the mystery one in the question before, and as we've got the match here, we've got Dark Orders number 10 against Max Caster of the Acclaimed. For me, I'm going with the Dark Orders number 10. I feel the momentum will be there. Good to see the Dark Order member involved as well at the pay-per-view also. Yeah, and of course he was actually involved in a Dynamite main event not too long ago as well. So I would like to see him involved in the ladder match. And I think Max Caster will be better off suited with the Acclaimed being in this casino tag team battle royale. So I'd like to see that go down. So I think that personally that would be the way I would personally book it. As for WWE FastLane, let's look at some of the main matches that I think we could expect to go down. As I said already, I think there'll be a screw job on Raw. So I do think that we're going to have Lashley versus Miz and potentially versus Drew McIntyre as a triple threat match for the WWE Championship. We're looking as well, Daniel Bryan is going to have another opportunity to get himself in the Universal Championship picture with a steel cage match on SmackDown this upcoming week against Jey Uso. I think he'll get through that. I think that there has to be a winner this time. So Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns, I think, goes down at FastLane. So we will have a repeat. These two have a lot of history when it comes down to facing at FastLane. I think Asuka versus Charlotte is something potentially that could go down. I think that WWE might pull the trigger and do that match at FastLane, and maybe will involve Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, if that's the direction I want to go down, or perhaps it will be the starting block to build where they will actually finish this rivalry once and for all at WrestleMania between the two of them. Looking at things as well, it'd be interesting to see if there is anything with Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. I think more than likely we could get Bianca Belair versus Reginald if they want to do a throwaway segment. It could be something they could throw on pay-per-view anyway. Cesaro versus Seth Rollins is something I'd like to see go down if that's going to happen at the pay-per-view. Kevin Owens versus Jey Uso is another potential you could see at this show. I think there is a chance that this could be a more SmackDown heavy show than Raw, fun enough. Next question is coming from Mike, a Tan Habs Mike. What are my thoughts on Cameron Grimes' new gimmick? His vignettes are gold and funny. Do you think it could lead to Ted DiBiase showing up? Grimes will get a huge rub off of it. And what do I think of Kyle O'Reilly being written off NXT? And just to add on to that, Mike's give his own thoughts on this. That he thinks it's brilliant and a long-term storytelling, and it makes O'Reilly into a bigger star and babyface. How would you book O'Reilly's return and eventual feud with Cole? Well, let's start with that one because I think actually it's a really good question. Both are really good questions, but of course we've just touched there on Kyle O'Reilly. And I do agree with you. I think him being written off TV is great because obviously he's going to get that big babyface return. It's just a shame that it still won't be in front of a lot of fans because I think it would really benefit. And Adam Cole has got so much he can be doing in the time being. We've seen now he's turned on Roderick Strong as well this week. The latest twist in this story in NXT, the Undisputed Era, is definitely finished. There's no going back on it. We wondered last week what was going to happen with Strong and Fish. It's not taken long to show that Adam Cole's intentions are to go completely solo and break away here. We can have Adam Cole against Roderick Strong building over the next week or two on TV, and even Finn Balor's direction seems to be Adam Cole. What happens with Karrion Kross now, I've got no idea. It feels like he's turned babyface. It feels like his direction is completely somewhere else. I'd even consider moving up to Raw or SmackDown after WrestleMania at this point and forget about him with the NXT Championship, because it feels to me Adam Cole against Finn Balor is a likely destination for the NXT Championship, perhaps on the next show. And this could be a great place then for Kyle O'Reilly to make the return, either as the fact that Cole wins the championship and O'Reilly, then shows himself, look, I'm back. I didn't interfere because I'm going to be the next champion. It's me and you. And they can have a series of matches like the Ciampa Gargano series we got back in 2018. And I'm really getting that vibes already with this rivalry. Or Kyle O'Reilly can just cost Adam Cole the championship, helps out his seemingly friend Finn Balor. Maybe it ends up being a triple threat somewhere further down the line. There's certainly lots of possibilities of how it can be booked, but the fact it's been booked off TV at this way, at this moment, after everything that's gone down, yeah, Kyle O'Reilly gets the sympathy. It's going to help long term. And I really think this is going to be a long-term storyline. It's not going to be done over 6 weeks. We're just starting this off. I can see this going for 6 months with Cole and O'Reilly. And I must admit, I can't wait. I'm currently loving every minute of it. But as for Cameron Grimes, looking at it, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really, at start, I wasn't quite sure what to make with the gimmick. I thought, this could be different, it could be interesting, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really entertaining, and if Ted DiBiase can come in, yeah, he'd massively get a rub off of it. I really enjoyed the stuff that was going on this week, and the fact that Grimes, he has a way of mucking things up even when it seems so obvious of what to do. Grimes he's almost like a national treasure, isn't he? He's such a great comedy character. It's great to have him around with NXT, and they really are booking him so well, and yeah, I can't wait to see how it's going to lead out. But yeah, am I enjoying it? I'm really enjoying it so far. Let's see what it's going to lead to next. We'll even try and buy a championship, maybe like Ted DiBiase did back in the day. We'll have to wait and see what happens as things go on. Next question comes from Renier Porter. New Roman Reigns versus old overpushed Roman. Who would win? What a fascinating question this is. The big dog against the Tribal Chief? Who comes out on top? To think about this and give an answer to you, I'm going to go for the Tribal Chief. And my reasoning for it is that, yes, Roman used to overcome all the odds previously. It didn't matter how many people were against him. That's still the same with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is still in there. He's not losing matches. He's still got the big dog where he wins matches, but he's a lot more intelligent. He's got intelligent people around him like Paul Heyman as well to direct him, that he hasn't got to, if you want, make so much effort of doing so. He's still the same Roman Reigns, but he's just got a lot more intelligent way of going about it. I think this Roman Reigns would find ways of defeating the old overpushed Roman Reigns. The big dog, for me, would succumb to the Tribal Chief. The Tribal Chief would reign supreme, in my opinion. George Jones, aka Jonesy Chats Wrestling, with our next question now. Just to let you know, go and check out Jonesy Chats Wrestling, his YouTube channel. Of course, I've been fortunate to go over there and do Raw and SmackDown reviews on his channel, so go and give him a sub. You can hear my in-depth thoughts on Raw and SmackDown each and every week, and in fact, they are being put on playlists here on SCW as well, so make sure and go and check them out. You can keep up to date with Raw and SmackDown reviews each and every week. But he's got great content also. Go and check out Jonesy Chats Wrestling. But he asks, if you could book Undertaker at this year's WrestleMania, who would you choose to be his opponent and why? Now, obviously, I've given my opinion on this before. I personally hope that this has been the last ride for The Undertaker. I think that if he was to come back and he didn't get the match he wanted, he will be chasing again for another 2 to 3 to 4 years to try and get that glorified finish. It doesn't always work out that way if he did come back for one more match. But let's be fair, it's not completely out of the realms of possibility that Vince McMahon makes the phone call and that The Undertaker says, look, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it one more time. Who should be the opponent then for The Undertaker if it was to happen at WrestleMania? For me, there's one answer and one answer only. It's AJ Styles, because AJ Styles is a great in-ring performer. He could probably give Undertaker a great match as well, a last hurrah if the Taker was to come back and do it one more time. You could build the story off the Boneyard match from last year. AJ Styles is almost in his corner this year also, so you may think now he'll have an advantage once again. Perhaps it could be a lot of fun. And I don't think AJ Styles currently has a WrestleMania direction. So if they were to do it, that certainly would be an interesting way to go. And maybe it would be the right thing this year to give AJ Styles the victory, because AJ Styles then could say that he won in Undertaker's last match. It certainly would be interesting if it was to be put together. But am I sure, or do I think it will happen? I'm not so sure. But if I was to pick one and Undertaker was to come and do it one more time, it should be against the opponent who it was supposed to be his last opponent, in my opinion. So AJ Styles will be my choice. Cherry Jerry of our next question now. Will TNA come back? Fascinating question. And after this week, with the TNA World Heavyweight Championship being reinstated as an actual championship, anything's possible. Let's be fair. I would say that obviously we're looking at TNA. A lot of nostalgia was there when it was brought back last year. A lot of fans were interested in the idea of it. Maybe there is something in it. Maybe it's something they will do down the line. I personally am going to go currently on the cautious side and say no. I think this is part of a bigger storyline. I think there is a chance that maybe perhaps Moose does become a double champion. I'm not quite sure. But there is also the choice and possibility now that they're going to face off at Sacrifice, that it could be not just champion versus champion, there could be a unification style match where if perhaps that whoever wins keeps the Impact Gold, or it becomes TNA. I'm not quite sure the direction of where it's going to go down, but if you asked me where I thought at this point, I think Impact Wrestling stays. I don't think they changed their identity, but I do think there will be a unification match somewhere down the line for both of those belts. But we know currently it's the Impact World Championship at Sacrifice, and Moose at this point for me, he's on a different level. I'd like to see him win it. We'll have to see what's going to happen. But is it going to come back? It could come back, but right now, I'm going to stay cautious. I'm not so sure. Noob and Co of our next questions for us now. Do you think Asuka is going to turn heel after what happened on Raw last week? And also, do I think that Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair will main event WrestleMania 37? And will Paul White, aka The Big Show, change the landscape of AEW? Sort of touched on these a little bit all through the video already, but with Asuka, I think there is a potential she could turn heel. I think if one of them is turning heel, Asuka is the most likely one. It feels that Charlotte is going to remain babyface for the moment, and Charlotte's direction, her sort of the story right now, she's been distracted with everything going on with Ric Flair and Lacey Evans. you wouldn't really blame Asuka at this point if she was to turn on Charlotte Flair. I think that Asuka would have a legitimate gripe as a character to actually turn on Charlotte, and where you should turn around and say, well, she shouldn't be a heel. But, I mean, WWE likes the face-heel dynamic usually a lot of the time, and it would be refreshing for Asuka to go down the heel avenue. It's certainly not been done for quite a while now. I believe it's been, at least 12 months or so since she's done so. I feel that her face run has gone pretty well, but I think in the last few months, something needs to change it up somewhere, so maybe heel turn would be the right way to go. I already give my thoughts on Sasha and Bianca Belair, but do I think it will main event WrestleMania? Yes, I'm going to predict now it will main event night 1 of WrestleMania, and night 2 will be Edge and Roman Reigns. This means then for the Raw side, just to give my little take on that, I think the WWE Championship, which let's say it's Lashley and Drew McIntyre, will be the penultimate main event on night 1, and I think that the Raw Women's Championship match will be on night 2 of WrestleMania. As for the Big Show, aka Paul White, I do think it changed the landscape just a little bit, because it just gives you that thought once again that anything can happen. Big Show, we thought was a WWE lifer, didn't we? We didn't think he was going to be someone that would come in to AEW and join them. And the thing is, he will fight in ring as well, although probably be a very limited part-time basis. He mainly is going to be on Elevation as a commentator of AEW with Tony Schiavone. I'm looking forward to seeing what he brings to the table, and I do have a feeling Big Show, or Paul White, let's start calling him Paul White from here on, I think he will be a good commentator. I really think he will bring a lot to the product. He's got a lot of experience to pass on to this, younger, developing generation of talents, and also he maybe puts over one or two of these larger-than-life, bigger superstars on the way out from the ring as well, and he probably gets that match with Shaq after all this time. So I do think that there's a lot of things there that could be really beneficial with Paul White being in AEW, and there's actually 2 videos that have been put on my channel this week regarding that, and if you haven't seen those videos already, make sure to go and check them out. A few more questions now from Noob and Co. Will Ric Flair take Charlotte's advice or manage someone else? We've already touched on the Apollo Crews' new heel character, but will Bayley have a match at WrestleMania 37? And who will Rhea Ripley feud in the main roster outside of the women's title scene? Some more great questions there. I feel that Ric Flair probably will be written off TV by the way that was done on Raw this past week, but I wouldn't be surprised to see if Ric Flair gives his knowledge. Like we said there with Paul White, there's a lot of experience that can be passed on to the generations. There just is a bit of a difference with the age with the two of them, and of course Ric Flair, he's at an older age right now. We are in the middle of a pandemic. Personally, for me, I would like to see Ric Flair off of TV for the time being. I just think it's a safer avenue at this point. But I wouldn't be surprised to see if Ric Flair was to ignore the advice and was to pass on his knowledge and manage another performer in the meantime. And maybe they can carry on the Charlotte storyline with her father in some sort of variation going down the line. As for Bayley, where does she fit in at WrestleMania? I'm not so sure. I did see in the comments of your question, I do want to see Bayley versus Rhea Ripley. That was suggested in there. This is a match I really want to see, but I don't think that's going to happen because Rhea Ripley is going to Raw. Bayley is on SmackDown. I think Bayley ends up in the Women's Battle Royal. I think that's currently the direction. Unless she ends up in a tag team and goes for the Women's Tag Team Championships, I don't see another route for Bayley right now. So I'm going to go for Bayley to be in the Battle Royal, but probably a heavy favourite to be in that Battle Royal as well on one of the WrestleMania kickoffs. As for Rhea Ripley, I think Alexa Bliss is the outside bet that you could turn around and say if she does go for the championship, Alexa Bliss would be the one because, well, she eliminated Alexa Bliss from the Royal Rumble. Certainly would be a way to carry on that storyline because Alexa Bliss, even though doesn't seem so faced since the Royal Rumble, she's not got that WrestleMania match. She didn't win and get to WrestleMania, so that certainly would be a rivalry that could be interesting to see. But of course, as well, you have the nightmare element of Rhea Ripley also. Does kind of give you some of that supernatural stuff could be involved, couldn't it? Which I probably would dread. But this seems to fit together nicely anyway, and perhaps I think would be a fun match to watch as well, should they do it normally. Straight Edge Josh for the next question now. Can you think of a wrestler in the WWE Hall of Fame who doesn't deserve it? Could be someone who has a controversial past. Very interesting question, this one, and depending on the layers of how you like to look at it, but the Hall of Fame, I mean, a lot of people would like to see people that have been multi-time champions, like you say, maybe someone with a controversial past maybe shouldn't be in there at some point. So let's look at it from both sides of things. For me, the most bizarre one probably, if you say like that they didn't win championships and they're in the Hall of Fame, why are they there? Coco Beware would be one that potentially could stand out for that reason because he was always a very lower card guy. He never really won championships or anything like that. He was always putting other talent over a lot of the time, but certainly was charismatic and entertaining to watch. So for that reason alone, I'm also not complaining that he's in the Hall of Fame either. I personally, I have a lot of respect for people that go inside the ring. They obviously put their bodies through stuff that I can't even imagine that they do so. So in some formats, maybe it's a bit harsh to say that as well. But some with a controversial past, there are a number that have had controversial past, whether they're wrestlers or not wrestlers. I won't go down the political route, if you don't mind, but potentially someone that could say maybe Jimmy Snuka. I mean, he's had many legendary moments in the wrestling ring, but obviously watching that Dark Side of the Ring episode really gave me a different perspective and thoughts on the matter. And of course, if there was someone that I'd say I could give an answer for your question, judging on that episode, that could potentially be one of them. Dylan Ketchum with our next questions now. Should AEW hire Lars Sullivan? And do you miss John Cena being on WWE TV? No and yes. But I'll give you just a little bit of detail very quickly. Lars Sullivan, look, controversy. We spoke about controversy in the last question. Controversy follows Lars Sullivan. So for me personally, I don't think they should hire him, judging on some of the stuff that's come out in the news reports of what's been going on with Lars Sullivan. And I don't know if himself right now, if he would feel in the right place to go and do professional wrestling right now. So for me personally, I would turn around and say, no, AEW shouldn't hire Lars Sullivan. Do I miss John Cena? Of course, he is definitely one of the biggest stars in WWE history. There are times when you look back through the noughties where, yes, Super Cena was far too over. He was burying a lot of your favourite wrestlers that were the up-and-comers, and there were times that perhaps that torch should have been passed earlier. But John Cena, you have to give the man a lot of respect. He gave a lot to WWE, a lot to the business. He was a big-time star. He's still a big-time star, and arguably there still isn't a lot of wrestlers on John Cena's level. So for me personally, I would be quite down for seeing John Cena back on WWE TV at some point. I want to see him back at WrestleMania. I'd love to see a Cena match at WrestleMania this year, putting somebody over. But we'll have to wait and see what will happen. We mentioned the idea of Bobby Lashley, if it wasn't to be against Drew McIntyre. What about Drew McIntyre against John Cena? You know, the top babyface of, you know, what was the top babyface in Cena against today's top babyface in Drew McIntyre. I think it would be a great match to watch. It would be that passing of the torch moment. So if I was to book something like that, I'd love to see it. And yeah, I would like to see Cena back on TV. I think personally it's long overdue at this point. Last questions this week come from Alexandra Big Dut this week, and he asks, do you hope WWE stop the weird storyline with Charlotte Lacey, and will it end with Charlotte winning at WrestleMania? And in your opinion, why did both Rumble winners choose the SmackDown champions? Quickly on the first one, well, Lacey Evans now is written off TV now. Now she's pregnant, it's legit, so it looks effectively that storyline's finished. As mentioned, obviously with Noob & Co. Earlier on in the video, if there is a chance that Ric Flair manages somebody else, they can revisit the Charlotte and Ric Flair storyline, but it looks like that with Charlotte and Lacey, that definitely is completely scrapped now. That's not going to be going forward, and it looks like even this past week on Raw, Lacey's not even sticking around for TV appearances, so for me, that looks completely done at this point. I think Charlotte, as we said in the video, now will probably start focusing on the Raw Women's Championship. As for the Rumble winners, well, it kind of made sense, I suppose, on both sides of things. I mean, Edge, he was on SmackDown when he had to retire. He was the champion, of course, at WrestleMania 27 time when he retired as well. I think it's kind of that comeback redemption story for him. So to have him back on the show that he was on, I think makes a lot of sense. And plus Raw, they have a lot of stars. SmackDown was missing one top babyface in my opinion, perhaps maybe two. Edge definitely fills that quota. If Christian is going to come in for a part-time schedule, that brings the opportunity for him to come there. Perhaps we'll get ENC together once again. As for Bianca Belair, again, her and Sasha Banks makes a lot more sense. Of course, the Street Profits also are on SmackDown, and of course, Bianca Belair is with Montez Ford in real life. In fact, I think they're even married. So it was no way that I think at this point they're going to split up. Yes, everything is recorded in the same environment with the Thunderdome, but I think eventually they will get back on the road. So it's good to have Bianca Belair. She's been put on SmackDown. She's been put as a top draft pick there, big-time player. Let's have a go for the SmackDown Women's Championship, and let's see if we can make a brand new star out of Bianca Belair. But that's it this week for AskSCW. Thank you to everyone watching. As always, if it's your first time watching, then please hit the subscribe button, hit your notifications to all. You can know each and every time a video is released here on SCW. Please also, for everyone that's been watching, please like the video if you enjoyed it, share it with a friend, spread the word of the channel, and of course as well, leave a comment on what you think of any of the topics we've discussed here today. More videos will be dropping through the week, including AEW Revolution predictions. They will be dropping this week as well. SCW interviews will be back also. Quick shout out as always as well to Wrestling Customs 24/7. Go and check out their website right now and follow them on social media. great custom-made championships for your action figures. Got great coasters as well, great selection of different little items on there, so go and check out their content right now. But thank you for watching. Have yourselves a great day. You've been watching SCW. Take care. I'll see you guys next time.